Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes.
Very successful, continues to be, but I had to walk my path. So I became a monk, a brahmachari, when I was 21. And the amazing thing is, a few years after becoming a brahmachari, I found myself back in corporate firms. But not in a suit and tie, managing anything, but coming into corporate firms in saffron robes and sharing wisdom with people in the professional community, because they were actually really hungry, really desirous to know how to live better lives, how to have greater well-being. And so nowadays, although I don't work in the corporate world, I still have a lot of exposure to the corporate world. And I guess the first thing I want to share today is that the Bhagavad Gita is such a beautiful book that when Arjuna wants to become a monk, when Arjuna wants to become a sadhu, when Arjuna feels that calling in his heart to renounce the world, Krishna tells him to do the complete opposite. And Krishna says, stay in the world, perform your duties, be successful, but do it with a spiritual goal. In other words, you can be a businessman, but be a spiritual businessman or a businesswoman. You can be an entrepreneur, but be a spiritual entrepreneur. And whenever you make money, whenever you achieve something in the world, factor Krishna in as your business partner. Maybe more than your business partner, your business boss. And if you do that, then Krishna says to Arjuna, Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti ya sa sanyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na cha kriya. Krishna says, then Arjuna, if you do that, you're more than a sannyasi. Because a sannyasi is not just one who's defined by their dress, by their outward appearance, but the sannyasi is one who anashrita karma phalam. The karma phalam, the fruits of their activities in this world, they don't use that for themselves selfishly, but they use those things to serve the world, to serve others, to serve God. And that makes you a real sannyasi. So I guess these are some initial thoughts to share with you.
Thank you, Maharaj. My next question is a simple one. What is the Vedic perspective on money and wealth?
So in the life cycle of the Vedas, it said that human life goes through 4 cycles: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. The beginning of human life is that one must be grounded in dharma. That's why from a young age in our culture, you're taken to the temple. That's why from a young age you hear Mahabharata, Ramayana. That's why from a young age you're told to do these rituals, observe these festivals, because the idea is that the beginning of life is to understand dharma. If your life begins with dharma, then everything can go on a good trajectory. But without dharma, there's no progressive human life. But then Krishna interestingly says, if you follow your dharma, then what will come? Artha. And artha actually means wealth. Artha actually means money. Artha actually means material possession. So Krishna is not saying that artha is a bad thing. Krishna says artha is a natural stage of life and it will come to you. And it will come to you in abundance if you follow dharma. And once you get artha, then Krishna says you're entitled to kama. You're entitled to also utilize it for some of your own gratification and benefit. You can have a nice house. You can go on holiday. You can eat nice food. You can do all of these things with your money. That's part of human life. But Krishna explains that soon you will realize that when you simply spend your artha only for selfish reasons, then you won't feel fully satisfied. And when that dissatisfaction or that little bit of emptiness comes within you, then moksha. You will begin to ask yourself, I've got all the material things, I've achieved everything I've wanted to achieve, but it seems like something is missing. So Krishna says, then moksha. You will begin to look at what is beyond this world. And so, isn't this a beautiful cycle? Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And therefore, in our tradition, in our culture, in the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, money is not a bad thing. But money, possession, power, wealth, acquisitions, only when they're used, let me say it in a different way. When you earn with integrity and then you spend with generosity, then your artha actually takes you to God. But you have to earn with integrity, and then once you have it, you have to spend with generosity. And then your artha takes you to God.
That's amazing. Thank you, Maharaj. I'd like to bring it back to a more practical perspective in terms of what should we be careful about when we're dealing with money, when we're dealing with business, in terms of potential pitfalls that we can encounter in perhaps earning the wrong way, spending the wrong way, like that.
Yeah. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's an amazing story of Parikshit. Many of you have heard of Parikshit. He was a great king, the son of Abhimanyu, who was the son of Arjun. So he was in that lineage of the Pandavas, and he became the king. And in his kingdom, he wanted to make sure that there was no influence of Kali. So one day he saw an agent of Kali, or Kali personified, who was killing a cow. And so he saved that cow. And he said to Kali, I'm going to kill you for your transgressions. At that moment, Kali surrendered to Parikshit. And it was Kshatriya rule that when someone surrenders to you, you can't kill them. So Kali said to Parikshit, I've surrendered to you. So you have to give me a place to live. So then, it was explained in the Bhagavatam. Abhyartitas tada tasmai stanani kalaye dudo dyutam panam striya suna yatra adharmas chaturvida. Kali was given 4 places that Parikshit said you can reside in. And what was those 4 places? Dyutam, where there is gambling. Panam, wherever there is intoxication. Striya, wherever there is illicit connection between man and woman. And Suna, wherever there is meat eating. So from that time on, it was understood in society that wherever these 4 activities are going on, definitely the influence of darkness will come about. And if you don't believe me, you can go to Las Vegas. But the interesting thing is, Parikshit, Kali looked at Parikshit and said, but in your kingdom, none of these things are happening. So you have to give me another place. So Parikshit said, you can then reside in one other place. And what is that one other place? Where money is hoarded. Because where money is hoarded, these 4 activities definitely will happen. And where these 4 activities happen, definitely Kali and darkness will come. And therefore, even in the Christian tradition, they say the love of money is the root of all evil. And so the potential pitfall of having money is when we simply hoard it and we utilize it only for our own gratification. Then what happens is that money becomes like an ocean in which you drown. So money is necessary. Money can also be very beautiful and powerful, but money can also be very, very destructive. And therefore the ancient principle of Vedic teachings was always to give in charity. In fact, it's said that householders in Vedic times, before they would sit down for a meal, you know what they would do? They would go to the door and they would shout 3 times, "Is anyone hungry? Is anyone hungry? Is anyone hungry?" And only after that they would take their meal if nobody came. Don't try it in Johannesburg. You can if you want. So that spirit of charity was so important. So the risk and the pitfall of money is that when we hoard it, then what happens is it brings about a mentality of activities with which we try to utilize that money, which then degrade our consciousness. That's the danger.
Thank you. Coming back to the Bhagavad Gita, it makes mention of a concept called karma yoga. If you could define what that means and elaborate further for us working class people.
So karma means activity or work, and yoga means to connect. So karma yoga means how to connect your work to make it an offering to God. So in a beautiful verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturvur ma te sangostva karmani. Krishna says you must do your karma, you must do your work, you must do your duty, but ma phaleshu kadachana, the phala, the fruit, the outcome of that activity, that should be dedicated to God. So when you work in this world, you get different phalas. One phala obviously is your wage, your salary, your money. Another phala is your intelligence from the field that you've become accomplished in. Another phala is your influence and your power by being in the position you're in. Another phala is the network of people that you can contact by being in your profession. So Krishna basically says karma becomes karma yoga when you engage all the phalas, all the fruits of your work in this world in service to God. Then it becomes karma yoga. Sometimes there is a misconception in the Hindu community that if I do my job, if I take care of my family, and if I, fulfill all of my responsibilities, then I'm doing karma yoga. That's actually wrong. That is karma. Karma yoga means when you earn, when you look after your family, when you perform all your duties, and you do it with God at the center, and you do it dedicating the phala to God, then it's karma yoga. Otherwise, it's just karma. And what do you get from karma? More karma. And if you get more karma, then what happens? You have to come back to the world to experience all of those reactions. And therefore Krishna says, Yagyarthat karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhana. You have to do yagya, you have to connect your karma to God, and then it becomes yagya, and then there's no karma bandhana, there's no entanglement of karma. So yeah, karma yoga is the way to live in the world, but not be entangled in the world.
Thank you. You also mentioned earning with integrity and spending with integrity. And I believe you also mentioned that it leads to an expansion of wealth. Can you elaborate a bit on that as well, please, Maharaj.
In this world, the temptation to compromise our principles to earn money is constantly there. In the English language, we say everyone has their price. There's a point at which it becomes so attractive and lucrative that we may end up compromising our principles. But the Shastra tells us, Dharma Rakshita Rakshita. If you protect your Dharma, then your Dharma will protect you. But the moment you violate your Dharma to get a quick gain, to get an immediate benefit, to get ahead of the game, you may experience some immediate benefit, but eventually it will all crumble. And therefore, as fast as people become wealthy and successful and powerful, just as fast they can crumble to oblivion again. And therefore, we have to earn with integrity. When you earn, keeping proper principles in mind, not exploiting others, not benefiting at the expense of others. When you do it with proper truthfulness, with proper integrity, then that kind of wealth will not only sustain, but that kind of wealth will actually grow. Because God, Krishna, divinity, will say, here is a responsible person who can utilize that, then why not give them more?
Thank you. Another question is, we're all working so hard, sometimes 5 days a week, up to 7 days, maybe 8 days a week. And it's a difficult thing to maintain a career or a business, a juggling act, if you like. Do you have any tips or advice that you'd like to share with us on that?
Take sannyas. Is one option. But maybe we need a few more here. No, you don't have to take all the sannyas. First thing is, try to have some time in the week which is ring-fenced and dedicated to Krishna. We had one very, very successful corporate investment banker in London, but he would set aside one day of the week. And he didn't set aside Sunday, interestingly enough. He would set aside a Friday. And he would say, on this day, I don't do any work. I only ring fence it for Krishna. And he did many, many amazing services, and he actually excelled in his career. When you put Krishna in the center, you'll never lose. There's just no way you can lose, because Krishna, from him, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partha Dhanodhara, Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. This is the last verse of the Gita. And Krishna says, wherever there is the devotee like Arjun, and wherever there is Krishna, who is Yogeshwar, there will always be victory, there will always be prosperity, and there will always be morality. So he did that. He ring-fenced the time in the week for his spiritual activity. You can also ring-fence a time in the day, ideally early in the morning, when you spend some time for your spiritual sadhana, your practice. And also what's really important is to ring-fence time spent with other devotees, because that association with other spiritual people helps you to stay on track. Otherwise it's very, very easy to drown in the world. Now with these three things, you're telling me ring fence, and then you're going to say to me, but I don't have time. But what you'll actually find is when you invest your time in spiritual things, you actually become more effective and more powerful in utilizing your time when you're at work. When time is utilized for Krishna, time expands. So what you'll actually find is that if you make that effort to prioritize this, then everything else in your life will naturally fit in. But it takes that faith and it takes that discipline.
Thank you, Maharaj. I'd like to bring it back to another point that you made about charity. The Bhagavad Gita says that charity in the mode of goodness is given out of duty, without expectation of return, at the proper time and place, and to a worthy person. Would you like to elaborate a little bit on that point of the Bhagavad Gita?
So when we give charity, what we're trying to do is we're trying to give something to someone that will help their life to become better. But oftentimes what happens in the world is people give charity without knowledge. For example, if you give money to someone but you have no idea how they're going to utilize it, then your giving them money could actually implicate them more into suffering. And therefore, in what sense are you doing charity? And therefore Krishna explains that if you want to do charity, then you also have to have knowledge. What we tell people is that when you take the passion to serve and you combine it with the compass of knowledge, then the compass plus the passion makes it compassion. Compassion doesn't just mean the passion to want to help someone. Compassion means the passion to want to help someone combined with the knowledge of how to do it in the best way possible. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada said, the highest and the best charity in the world is to give people spiritual knowledge. Because if you give people spiritual knowledge, then you give them the opportunity to get out of the material world which is full of suffering. You can give charity to help people in temporary ways, but that charity will only help them for a certain amount of time and will only sustain for a certain amount of time. But it won't solve their problem at the root. And therefore Srila Prabhupada said the best charity work in the world, the highest welfare work we can do, is to share Krishna consciousness with everyone. Because by doing that, you solve people's problems at the root. Yes, we can give money to feed someone, but there will be other problems in their life that are not solved by that. Yes, you can go to the disaster zone and give help, and we should help, but that in itself won't solve the problem. Therefore, real charity means to incorporate spirituality. Otherwise, Srila Prabhupada said, ordinary charity is simply blowing on a boil. If someone has a boil and you blow on it, it will give temporary relief, but it doesn't solve the problem.
Thank you, Maharaj. One last question before we perhaps open up to the floor. If anyone has any questions, we can also, Maharaj can take them. How else can we contribute to the world in a positive, productive, constructive way, coming from a position of power and influence, such as our esteemed guests in front of us?
Thank you for asking this question. This is the most important thing that actually I wanted to share with all of you. Gandhi, he once said, "My life is my message. My life is my message." The best thing you can do for the world is actually to become a pure devotee of Krishna. Yes, your wealth can do something and you should utilize it. Yes, your efforts can do something and you should engage them. But the best thing you can do for the world is to become a pure devotee of Krishna. Because if you do that, you will inspire unlimited numbers of people. Sometimes we want to change the world, but we don't want to change ourselves. in our temple in London, all the parents come on Sunday morning and they drop their kids to the temple for Sunday school. And they tell their kids, you should learn Bhagavad Gita. And then after dropping the kids, they go to the cinema to watch a Bollywood movie. And then they go to the golf course. And then they go to the shopping center. And then after everything is done, they come to pick up the kids. And I told them, your kids are definitely going to learn something by coming to the temple. But you know what? They're going to learn more from what they observe watching your own life. Because your life is your message. And therefore, the greatest impact that you can have in the world is the devotion, the love, the integrity, the purity that you live with. Because that's what's going to have the biggest impact on your family, your friends, and anyone who comes in contact with you. And Srila Prabhupada said, if you really want to please me, then the best way to please me is to become a pure devotee of Krishna. And if you do that, everything else will be beautiful. Hare Krishna.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Maharaj. A round of applause for special Swami. Thank you.